Now, a quick recap. The Judicial Service Commission has conducted interviews for the position of Chief Justice. Constitutional Court Justice Mbuyiseli Madlanga was the first one to appear before the JSC on Tuesday. He was followed by Supreme Court of Appeal Justice Mbuyiseli, Judge President Dustin Mlambo, and then Deputy Chief Justice Raymond Zondo just yesterday. The JSC is deliberating today on its preferred candidate for the position of Chief Justice. Now, eNCA reporter Heidi Giokos has been following the story and joins us live now. Good afternoon, Heidi. Deliberations are in fact underway. Maybe just remind us about some of what was said this week, especially yesterday with the acting Chief Justice Raymond Zondo.
Yes, indeed. I think there was much anticipation for Acting Chief Justice Raymond Zondo to be interviewed because many were expecting there to be some tough questions, especially with his role as a chairperson of the State Capture Inquiry. But I must say, Mfundo, many were quite surprised at the end, almost at the end of the interview process, when Acting Chief Justice Raymond Zondo was asked by Commissioner Julius Malema why he visited former President Jacob Zuma on, I would say, 3 occasions, twice at a hotel and then again at his Forest town home in 2008, and I think many were quite surprised as to why exactly that happened. So the reason and the explanation given by the acting Chief Justice Raymond Zondo was because of the fact that he said he heard quite worrying comments made by then ANC member Julius Malema that he will kill for Zuma. This apparently was made at a political rally, and acting Chief Justice Raymond Zondo said he was quite worried about this because he says that he didn't want this to be a reason that would spark violence in the country, and he says he was also worried about violence possibly happening in KwaZulu-Natal. So he said he was very worried about that, and he found it necessary as a concerned citizen to rather go and explain this to the president at the time in 2008 to say perhaps we should be wary about the comments made, especially when they have violent undertones and when you have political supporters there at a political rally. How are they going to take this kind of message? But what was interesting was that Commissioner Julius Malema kept pressing acting Chief Justice Raymond Zondo to explain the other 2 visits that were made at his hotel, at former President Jacob Zuma's hotel apparently, and the acting Chief Justice just said, I don't know, I don't remember, and I remember the one visit and I've told you about this. So let's perhaps listen to some of that interaction with Commissioner Julius Malema and acting Chief Justice Raymond Zondo.
All right, unfortunately we don't have that bite, Heidi. But beyond this, if we had to talk about constitutional jurisprudence, I mean, many had thought this is what would perhaps characterize the interviews to a great extent. But there seems to be concerns about not the questioning per se or even the answers of the candidates, but rather the commissioners' conduct themselves, particularly what we saw yesterday, Malema and Minister Lamula in that argument. Just talk to me about what was really at the center of this blue lies argument.
Yes, and I think you touched on a very important point, Mfundo, and this is what the legal fraternity has repeated time and time again, to say that the conduct and the manner in which the Judicial Service Commission is carrying out these interview processes, whether it be for Chief Justice or other positions in the judiciary, the kinds of questions that are being asked don't necessarily qualify and express a candidate's true qualifications, characteristics, skills and capabilities. It takes a true leader to be the Chief Justice of the Constitutional Court. So it becomes very complex when questions are asked around whether or not somebody visited a particular house, or whether or not they're in favor of the current administration and against the previous administration, being that under former President Jacob Zuma. But basically what happened, it's a very complex matter, so I'm going to try and explain it as quickly as I can. But it seems as though the acting Chief Justice Raymond Zondo was asked how it came about that Judge President for Gauteng Division, Dustin Mlambo, got to be acting as a constitutional court judge last year. This is common practice. Judges are appointed to act in the constitutional court, but the problem here was that there seemed to be some idea and perception that his name was thrown in to act at the constitutional court without following due processes. So Acting Chief Justice Raymond Zondo said it wasn't the norm to normally get informed or told which name we should be told about, but the problem here is the fact that the Minister of Justice, Ronald Lamola, actually got involved in this and actually put the name in. The Constitution does make provisions for the President, together with the executive heading up the Minister of Justice. I was about to say Defence. The Minister of Justice. Being involved in this kind of process. But the issue came about whether it was a norm or not, but at the end of the day, was it legal or was it illegal? And the Constitution does not indicate whatsoever that this was any illegal activity that was done with regards to certain names being presented as to who should act on the Constitutional Court bench. Was it ethical? Was it normal? I think South Africans will have to make their mind up about this, and probably this is what's being deliberated now in these Judicial Service Commission deliberations.
Yeah, and I understand that the EFF, in fact, will be laying a complaint. I mean, whether that is legitimate or not, they have a right to ask, but I suppose many South Africans are wondering, was this the correct platform nevertheless, or here we really wanted to know how a candidate would probably develop constitutional jurisprudence, honestly speaking, because really there was quite a lot of drama. We've had matters around sexual harassment being thrown in, so clearly quite a lot of people not really dissecting the candidate's response, but just the conduct of the commissioners, which I suppose is quite unfortunate, Heidi.
Yes, I think it is quite unfortunate, and Mfundo, it speaks to what happened last year when the Judicial Service Commission was compelled to redo interviews for 2 constitutional courts positions because of the manner and the type of questions that were being asked last year. I think one of the judges actually decided not to come and redo her interview process because of what she was subjected to and the kind of questions that were asked. It almost seems that sometimes it becomes very political and it also becomes very personal. But it's also a question, Mfundo, about how these commissioners conduct themselves. They can't be seen to be arguing with each other, especially in public and when these interviews were being taken live. Yesterday, the Minister of Justice, Ronald Lamola, called Julius Malema a liar, and Julius Malema did not take that well. There was arguing between the two, and this was done live on national TV in the middle of Acting Chief Justice Raymond Zondo's interviews. So as much as they might disagree with each other, this should be saved for deliberations. And now you also have a huge issue where a letter has been written to the Judicial Service Commission asking for the redo of Judge President Dunstan Mlambo's interviews because questions were posed to him based on rumours. And many are saying now his interview process is completely tainted because nobody can even remember his plans. Nobody even remembers what he really spoke about, his vision and plan about changing the judiciary. And he had some very good ideas, but now everybody's wondering where do these sexual harassment rumours come from, and was that the kind of platform to raise this, because there was no evidence that could be presented, and it wasn't even listed as an objection when this interview process was conducted in the very beginning. So I think the Judicial Service Commission might have to explain this when they do have this press briefing that all media are on standby for. We were told it would be at 1 o'clock today, and now we've been told just to wait. So I hope that we'll be able to pose these questions, because perhaps there needs to be a relook at the kind of questions, and there needs to be a clear criteria of what can and can't be asked.